Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands
upcoming tours.
and show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
December 26, 2022.
All right. Welcome back to the day after Christmas episode of All That Jam. We have the rest of our interview with Dopapod coming up in a little bit. We have an audience participation that we're going to get to. I have a theory about Phish, New Year's Eve, Goose, and the bear market for tickets. We also have Amanda's top 3 stories of the week. How was your Christmas, Amanda?
Christmas was great. I always do exhale a little bit when it's all over, even though I love it so much. But this part of the year now, coming into New Year's and even after New Year's, is my favorite time of the year. So I'm pumped.
I'm with you. I'm with
Love
you.
it.
Nothing better than that.
Yep.
All right. So you have what do you have coming up for New Year's? I know that a friend of yours is gets to go to Goose.
Yeah, Mr. Hapster received all expenses paid trip yesterday from his joint bank account to go to.
There you go.
Yeah. I put the fun money in an envelope. I'm like, well, that's our money. But no, so
Right.
yeah, everybody's excited for Goose. I'm right now planning to be home. However, I might pop into Cheese at the Mission Ballroom here and there. We'll see.
Nice, nice. There's a lot going on out there for New Year's. All right, let's jump into your top 3 stories of the week so we can get into the Dopapod stuff.
The top 3 stories of the week.
All right, Kevin. So, 3 stories for the week. And I'm going to start with one that caught my eye because I just seen Yonder Mountain play. An article in Live for Live Music had Yonder's Ben Kaufman, who, of course, is the OG right at this point. He was talking about the Grammys, band lineups, and then Denver Comes Alive, which is going to be happening here pretty soon. And so I would just say check out the article, a couple highlights from it. Yonder is preparing to headline the opening night of Denver Comes Alive. That's going to be Friday, January 13th. And Live for Live Music caught up with Ben. They recently got a Grammy Award nomination as well. So they've got some really good things coming on for this upcoming year. And I mentioned this also because when I saw Yonder this month, when I saw Yonder earlier this month, seems like it was a lot longer ago. At Strings and Soul, Ben was singing some Jeff Austin songs that I think are very meaningful. And so
Oh, right. We talked
we
about
talk
that.
about that. So, I always wonder how they're doing and the fact that they've been able to continue working through so many lineup changes, I think is pretty miraculous to me. And so great article. They definitely are going to be doing a lot of good things in 23.
So there's only one original member left in the band,
Oh man, that's a good question.
or two maybe.
There's,
I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to look that
yeah,
up.
let me get back to you on that. I don't know.
That's like a double Jeopardy $1,000 question for you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but they're also going to be doing some great stuff, sit-ins and other special guests at that Live for Live Music Denver Comes Alive event. Kitchen Dwellers will be there and some others too. Kevin, I thought of this next one with you in mind. The Punk Rock Museum from Fat Mike from NoFX is getting a new opening date, and it's going to feature guided tours from punk musicians. So I wanted to just share a little bit and then see if you've heard of this or what you know. So this is considered the world's first comprehensive punk rock museum, officially opening, scheduled now for March 10th. That was just announced a few days ago. And it was supposed to open next month, but going to be backed up just a little bit. And this is in Vegas. The list of musicians confirmed for the opening is like 3 pages long. But I wanted to know, is this something you've heard of? Are you interested in possibly visiting?
Oh, I'll definitely check it out if I'm ever back in Vegas. I did see something about it. I skimmed it real quick. I did not see that all these people are like going to do tours or they're recording stuff for the exhibits. Do we know what that is exactly?
Yeah, so what I know, first, it sounds like it's a pretty big space, about 12,000 square feet. And it's going to be, I think, the first museum to really document the history of punk and its influence. And then, yeah, so there's going to be a whole bunch of musicians who are recording, but also should be there for the opening. And it was created by this collective of 10 musicians, among them Pat Smear from Nirvana and the Foo Fighters. Let's see, Warped Tour founder Kevin Lyman, and then Tony Hawk is one of the non-musicians, but they got some pretty big names in there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very interested to see where they go with it because it's very subjective where punk came from, what created punk. I mean, I put out there that Richard Hell created punk, and Malcolm McLaren had a boy band to sell fetish wear called the Sex Pistols and totally ripped off Richard Hell. That's my theory with punk rock in a nutshell. And, a lot of times they don't go into that. The Sex Pistols are hailed as the creators of punk rock when it had been going on in New York for years. Yeah, I'm definitely fascinated.
Yeah.
I will jump into that. Hopefully, Fish will be playing the Spear for Halloween at some point, and I'll have to get myself up early and one day and check it.
Yeah. Well, and to answer your question about the tours, there are definitely going to be guided tours. I think those have to be booked, specifically for that kind of activity. And the list is long. I don't know exactly who is going to be running those, but it sounds like they're going to have a lot of people there doing some kind of active engagement stuff.
Nice.
I think it's about time for something like that.
It is.
It
is. They should have called me.
I know. Well, you know what? Now we have a list of people involved, so we can get on that.
I'll reach out to Tony Hawk.
There you go. Yeah, he seems like a friendly guy. All right, so
seems like a good guy.
Yeah. So in a completely different side of the music industry, I saw this article. It's actually in the New York Times, and it's about an organist, Anna Lapwood. She's really young, like 27 years old. She is the main organist at the Royal Albert Hall in London. And I had seen her stuff on Instagram. I'll explain why in a minute. But the reason why this is news is because she has become the first kind of classical music instrumentalist from her field to have more than 400,000 fans on TikTok. And the reason that she started doing this, kind of her big moment, was a couple of months ago. Bonobo, who I love, they're kind of an electronic music group, really big in certain circles, were preparing for a concert there. Anna was rehearsing for something else. They heard her and invited her to play with them on the pipe organ for their sold out show. And that went totally viral. Mm. Yeah. And so, and it sounded great. I mean, it was a totally different way to experience music by Bonobo for sure. But since then, she has been recording all of her practices and, posting them online, huge numbers. And there's a lot of opinions on that on both sides, right? So you've got American organists who are like, hell yeah, this is great. You play that thing like a dancer. And then the classical folks are thinking, maybe this isn't such a good idea. But always good to look and, listen to different things.
The thing that's weird to me, the phrase that I'm hearing you use is classical organist, because I don't think of organ necessarily as being a classical instrument, but what's his name with the fugues? Toccata and fugue in A minor, I guess that's played on an organ. So,
especially these kinds of...
I always think of organ as like, organs make me think of like churches or roller rinks. Mm-hmm. Kind of places that would have them, or skating rinks used to. Yeah. I don't know. That's fantastic, though. I'm going to have to, good for her.
Yeah. And this is, I would say, the ultra mega version of that. So 4 keyboards and 999,099 pipes. just one shy of 10,000. Why couldn't they have added the last one? I don't know.
Right. Because nines are lucky,
Must be
maybe.
better for some reason. But, she takes this really huge sound that can come out of that thing. And she's definitely been playing some music that kind of strays away from what they typically do, too.
Love it. Love it. We have to check that out some more. And it's a great way to, if you're a classical organist, how do you find an audience except happening into things like this? Maybe open someone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the next guy up gets a little something too. Very nice. So let's talk about the next guy up getting a little something. Goose is playing New Year's, and my new theory is that the fish market in New York is tanking because you could go see Goose 3 years in a row for the price of one run of Fish in New York. I mean, I saw tickets for $50 for the 28th and 29th on SeatGeek. So this is really fascinating to me. Do you think that Goose is helping this, or do you think it's all just the economy and people are like, I don't have $2,000 to spend on a week up there in New York?
Probably a little from column A and a little from column B. I do like, even as diehard Fish fan, I do like to see some reassemblage of people's priorities, and I think that's really interesting. I mean, listen, Fish, New Year's, the tickets, and just the money people have to lay out for that these days is so out of control compared to what I remember. And everything is, right? It's not just Fish, but people can go to Cincinnati for 2 shows, lodging, the whole deal, a fraction of what you pay in New York City or other more expensive.
For just staying on 1231 in New York and going to the show. You can do the whole thing, including plane tickets to Cincinnati, if you can get on a flight at this point.
Well, yeah. I'm not even sure I want to think about everybody I know who's probably sweating it out right now, hoping that, power lines stay up or whatever. But
Right.
But yeah, I think even this year, a lot of people I know who are lifers for New Year's Eve at Madison Square Garden had decided not this year, not doing it.
Yeah, interesting. We're gonna see. I wonder how far the market will go down. $50 2 days before for 1228. It'll probably hold there. Maybe even go up to 70 as people start to be like, oh, it's cheap to go. So then you'll get a little bump in it. I like to think of the ticket market as a stock market thing.
Well, in a way.
Basically, it is. People are speculating.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And anyone who's stood outside a venue, like me many times, checking out as the prices shift, and you're like, well, if I wait 10 more minutes, what's going to happen, right?
Right.
In some ways, it is definitely a game.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's jump into some of this Dopapod. This first clip we're going to play is Chuck and Neil. We're going to run them back to back, talking about the origins of the band a little bit, that the history we didn't get into last week. So let's run that, and you and I will talk a little bit on the other side.
So Dopapod started as a duo. It was Eli on keys and Michelangelo Karuba, drummer.
Okay.
And then Rob joined. And then my first gig with the band actually was, we were all going to Berklee College of Music, and Dopapod got accepted to be on the Jazz Revelation Records, which is the Berklee record label. They had a couple, 2, maybe 3, but they had a jazz one and sort of more of a pop one. So Dopapod got accepted to be on the Jazz Revelation Records, and they did a recording. Eli asked me to come and be part of the recording, as we'd already been playing some music together. We had another band. And then after that, I did the concert at the BPC for the Jazz Revelation Records 2009 release. And from there, he just sort of asked me to stick around. I'm wondering if the show you're talking about, we used to play a lot of basement parties, and pretty often we would just play until the cops showed up.
Yeah, I read something on a blog post.
That was definitely, that was early on, that we'd play basement parties, warehouse parties, and just, anything that we could have a built-in audience,
Sure, definitely. You got to do what you got to do to get out there.
Exactly.
My joining the band was pretty interesting. I had a lot of other bands. This is like 2009, when I was living in Boston, going to Berkeley. I had a fun kind of, we called it bluesadelic funkicide as the genre. So this was like, there's a band called the Cashed Fools, and it was like Jimi Hendrix, Chili Peppers, crazy high energy stuff. And around that time, a bunch of things. I had been playing percussion for several groups, just random people that I met who had percussion and had interest in having some percussion be performed with them. So I was just kind of doing that. And then the other thing I was doing was my landlord's brother had a party trolley company. And so I would set up to either for my own show or a friend's band's show, have the party trolley take everybody to the show and then back to, another location for an after party or something like that. And so I'd asked Dopapod to do an after party for the Cash Fool show, with the party trolley thing and all of that. And Eli was like, yeah, I'm super down. Let's do it. And then as it neared, the party trolley thing didn't work out. And then they also had to leave to go play for the Heady Fest music festival in upstate New York. So he was like, yo, so we can't do the gig, but you should come with us and just come to this festival. I was like, okay, cool. And then, since I had been playing percussion with people, I was like, do you guys have any interest in having some percussion on the show? And they were like, yeah. So leading up to it, I just brought like a conga and a cowbell to the rehearsal space because they actually lived up the street from me. And we just kind of jammed in there and everybody was feeling it. So that's how we kind of put that together. So then when we did that first gig was this upstate New York music festival, and I brought, like way too much extra percussion and stuff like that. But Mikey Karuba of like Turquoise and all that was playing drums at the time. So we organized this like great, long percussion drum through composed thing. So that was a highlight from that. But yeah, that was the first gig.
Yeah, and he passed the torch to you at that
Yes,
point.
indeed. And there was a fun year or so where we were both in, or all three of us were in both bands. So I was also playing percussion Turquoise back then.
Kevin, I think one of the things that came through from both Chuck and Neil is even though there have been lineup changes over time, this feels like a band that's really kind of settled in its groove these days of where everyone is and what they're doing. And I think that shows in the last couple of years, especially with the work that they put out.
Right. Yeah. With Neil leaving and coming back and only being there that short little time, and then the hiatus, and it's just crazy. And hopefully when they look back 5 years from now, it'll be, hey, that was the point that we really did make a turn to be able to go to the next level, which is what we all want to say. All right, let's this is one of your favorite questions, side projects. So let's check that out, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
I always think it's important to chat about like other things you have going on too. So side projects, other collaborations. I'd love for you to just chat a little bit about some of that, because I know you always have different things happening.
I do have lots of bands. Fun thing about being a drummer is you get to sort of support other people's musical vision. So you get to spread out. But yeah, I have another project called Photon with a good friend, Jimmy Dunstan, who's a keyboard player. And then one of my longest music collaborators, Dan Africano on bass. He now is playing in Thievery Corporation, which is like a perfect gig for him. And then another band I have with Dan is called Elephant Wrecking Ball, and it features a trombone player as well. And it's like weird and jazzy and funky.
Nice.
And
I love the name.
Out to space, all that stuff.
I know Photon you all are repped through Color Red.
We did right? We did 2 albums over there. It's actually kind of right down the street from my house. And nice. Yeah, we've actually done an Elephant Wrecking Ball one there, and a few things. So it's cool to just have that resource down the street.
We find these on Bandcamp. Is that where we find this stuff?
All of these are on Bandcamp. Some, I think they're on Spotify and all that stuff too. I was just thinking I had another band with Chuck called Mom and Dad, which we haven't done stuff in a while, and I think that the album it didn't renew on the main platforms, but it's still on Bandcamp.
Yeah, well, I recently moved to Vermont in April of this year, and it's just been a kind of whirlwind of, my wife finding a job, getting settled, doing that, and us being on tour. So this is kind of my first time really being home for a chunk of time. So I'm going to try and just get settled and figure out a rhythm here.
Is there a club near you? Any cool places?
We're we're not too far from Burlington, Vermont. So, Nectar's is down there, Higher Ground.
Okay, right.
And there's a lot of really cool little local spots. Those are a little bit farther too, but actually Rob and I from Dopapod just did a string of shows with Ray and Russ from Trey Band. They have a side project called Sole Monde, and it's normally a duo, but we just they brought us on to play guitar and bass, so we were a quartet for 4 days, which was very fun.
Nice. And what was the song selection? Was it covers? Was it songs from both bands?
So they have all original music, but they also just released a Christmas album. So we did 2 sets, and the first set was their reimagination of Christmas songs, and then the second set was all of their original music. But normally Ray is playing left-hand bass on, and there is no guitar. So with us, I was playing bass, and there was no guitar.
And it filled it out. Nice. I'm going to have to look for that. I'm a big fan of Christmas music. I know it gets a bad rap, but when I had kids, I got back into it because how do you deny the kids?
It's great. It's a duo. It's Ray and Russ. I mean, they're both
incredible. Yeah, I've heard of that before. I did not realize that you guys made it into a quartet. Is that something that will appear again, or was it a one-off 4-night thing?
I bet we'll do some more shows at some point. There's no, we haven't made any plans for that yet, but I could see that happening. Everybody loved it, and the audience seemed to enjoy it too. So I think.
Did you go see that band?
Weather got in the way. I was actually supposed to see Neil play with a super group also the Thursday before Christmas, and it was all postponed because of weather. But I'll tell you what, he's everywhere playing with those side projects, but just jam sessions too, all over the place out here.
Yep, that's fantastic. All right, this next clip is just Chuck. I had asked him about most memorable or unmemorable stuff that happened at a venue at a show he was at. So let's hear what he had to say. What is the craziest experience you've ever had as a bass player at a show or gig? What are some worst stories there?
I mean, a horror story, which happens to the entire band, not just me and the audience too, is we were playing in New York City a few years ago, and during the set, I smelled something. This is back when Scott Zwang was playing drums for us, who's now in Ghostlight.
Okay.
He and I were playing, and we kind of look at each other and we're like, "Do you smell that?" He's like, I don't know, someone's smoking like DMT or something, something weird, like very specific sort of smell. But eventually sort of saw like a commotion, and then we looked to the side of the stage, and the security guard's like, get off. And one of the speakers above the stage had caught fire.
Oh no.
And nightclub fires are terrifying.
Yes.
So, I mean, luckily they got everyone out. We got off stage, and there was no injuries, and they were able to put it out pretty quickly. But that was, I would say
speakers falling. I mean, Curtis Mayfield, he was paralyzed the last few years of his life from a lighting truss or something falling on him at soundcheck.
Yeah, I know someone on the Radiohead team, one of their crew guys, had a video wall or something on and killed him. So there are hazards that you don't necessarily associate with the music.
Right.
You're always like drugs and alcohol and overdoses and stuff, but you could also,
But it's like any other workplace, and it's like a construction site, basically. Yeah. That's an overnight construction site, for the bigger shows. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That is a crazy story, Amanda, I must say.
When you're touring and on the road and just in so many different places all the time over years.
This was actually the impetus, these next two clips of Chuck and Neil, of reaching out to them. Besides that, we wanted to talk to them, and you knew Neil from around Denver there. The new LP, it has a game with it. It has a whole video. It's fantastic. So let's let them talk about that a little.
Yeah.
So you guys, I mentioned the last 2 releases. How many releases total have you had?
Oh, that's a great question. I think yeah. So this most recent one was our 7th studio album. That's why it's called Dopapod. 7 letters. You know, it's sort of all
Right.
worked out. And then we released 3 live albums and a couple singles. So I don't know. You could 10 plus of official
Nice.
things that we've released. Yeah.
Nice. Now the last album, let's dive into that a little
Sure,
bit
yeah.
because I was very inspired. I saw a Twitch with some of the guys from the band months ago, maybe even last year, I don't know, but it was about the game part of the album
Sure, yeah.
and how you made that into the whole thing. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I mean, it's such a fantastic idea and something so original. You want to go into a little bit about how that happened, explain to everyone exactly. I mentioned game. That's probably not doing it justice the way it works.
Yeah, so it's kind of a few different parts. One of the main people behind the idea and absolutely the artwork and just the development of this was our old lighting designer Luke Stratton. He was with us from 2010 until the end of 2021. So you know he'd been there from the beginning until he moved on. But his other passion in life was Dungeons and Dragons, and then during the pandemic, he got really into drawing on his computer, which sort of worked into him designing maps for people to use when playing Dungeons and Dragons online. You know, like normally it's an idea of theater of the mind, you're playing in person. It's developed a little bit more, so people have made little physical.
I used to do it on graph paper with a pen.
Exactly. That's kind of how it started, but it's developed now into more of like a lot of people use like physical things to represent their characters and do maps and everything. And as the online world developed, and especially during COVID, a lot of people were doing it on there. So he developed a lot of maps for that. And at some point, I don't remember who brought it up, but the idea of turning the album into a board game came up. And luckily we had someone who knew a lot about games and also could design a game by, you know, making that happen and also actually doing the artwork. So Luke was we couldn't have done it without Luke. From there, Neil put a lot of work into the development of the game too. And then a lot of the artwork was sort of discussed between Neil, Eli, and Luke. Rob and I kind of stayed out of the development of it. Just we like, you know, on certain things we agreed or disagreed, but just oftentimes, you know, it's for the most part, it's a democracy in the band, and that's can work in the favor of getting things pushed, and also it can slow things down if everybody.
Sometimes too many cooks, huh?
Exactly. Too many people have an opinion. So I think I'm just always conscious. It's like, unless I'm really passionate one way or the other, I kind of just, yes, no, looks great. And I
got no dog in this fight, whatever you want to do.
Exactly. So a few times, like some of the art, when it was like this or that, I'd put in an opinion, but for the most part, it was like, sounds great. Trust you guys. Go for it.
And how is it done? How has it been received? Have you gotten press from it?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming up at the end, but we got nominated for in Europe. We got nominated for best vinyl artwork competition. I don't expect us to win that because the way that was voted upon was by you sharing an article and people going there and clicking on it, and I don't think that we've put much effort into that. So yeah, but I mean, that's, you know, even getting nominated is really cool. But generally with our fans over here, I think everybody saw, you know, it took a lot of effort from people involved to get this thing developed, you know, like writing rules to a game and then really spending a lot of time doing this. I think
it isn't going in and recording your 10, 12 songs.
Right, yeah. So yeah, a lot of effort was put in. And I think people generally, the game is fun. People like it. I think it's like, again, you can't, whether or not you're a fan of the band or of the game, you can't deny that there is some ingenuity and, you know,
great angle. It's such a great angle.
Yeah, it's a cool thing that with not too much having to do with the development of it, I'm excited to be a part of it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm fascinated by. I saw the Twitch last year, earlier this year, when you released your new album, self-titled, and it has a game with
Mhm.
it. You want to talk a little bit about the game, how that came about?
Yeah, totally. So our former lighting designer and sound guy, Luke Stratton, excuse me, he's big nerd, and he spent most of the pandemic learning or drawing maps for Dungeons and Dragons. And so, and you could apparently you can do this and make money on it. He has like he did a Patreon so well that Patreon was like, this is how you do it. Like, you know, recognized him as like one of these guys. Yeah, which is just about how he rolls with everything he does. But he was making all this maps and doing all these things, and we were working on the album. We were talking about artwork. And just somewhere in there, somebody said like, "Oh, it'd be so cool to like make this artwork a game or something," and that was the seed that planted. And we decided to have Luke do the artwork. So he sort of designed the board, and then mostly me with a little bit of help. We sort of designed the rules, how to make it like a game, because you can go pretty deep into the world of trying to like design a game or doing all this thing. And we were like, we just got to make it simple, where you could buy this at a record store, not know it was a game, get home, open it up, and play the game. So like we did create pieces and little dice and stuff like that, but totally unnecessary. You can just get home and play the game.
Is it involved with listening to the album?
I think there are some bonus rules where like, because the layout of the game is that you're sort of going through the world of Dopapod, or the worlds, and so each space is a song name from the current or previous albums. I think there's a bonus where if you land on a space that is the song you're listening to, you know, something happens.
Nice.
But that's about it. But yeah, obviously you should just listen to us.
Yeah. So first, I love that it's a self-titled album, you know, coming on the heels of everything else that they've put out. But what struck me, especially as Neil was talking about the game and the animation and all of that, is just this feels like a band that has a lot of energy for what they're doing. And I think even beyond social media and whatnot, it just shows a cohesiveness. I think that's really cool. And as soon as we finished the interview, I went and I looked up all the stuff that Neil was talking about, and really well done.
It is. It's just brilliant. And another time that, you know, hopefully you look back on COVID, they came up with all this. They had all their people, all their creative team home. They said, let's do the next level thing. So, all right.
Amazing when people have time.
It is amazing. It is amazing. So we make sure that you go over and check us out on Twitter, Instagram, at All That Jam Pod. We have a website, www.allthatjampod.com, and sign up for the email list over there. Make sure that if you are on Apple, you're an Apple person, please leave us a review. 5 stars. If you're on Spotify, however you like over there, and let's get this done. We're going to close out with Neil about what he's been listening to, tour dates, and then we're going to get into a question we asked about what's going on for New Year on our socials, and a little bit Amanda has curated that data for us. So let's check this clip out, and on the other side, we'll look at what's coming up next week and that question.
No problem.
And that question is, what are you listening to now? If I looked at your iPod or your phone or your Spotify.
You know, my Spotify year-end results were a lot of tunes that I listened to over and over, having to learn. Like I did a Medeski, Martin and Wood set for Jazz Fest in Burlington back in June, and I love that music so much, but like having to do a set of it for Jazz Fest, I really went back and like really dug into it.
Right.
Sorry, my dog is having a nightmare. Zed, you're fine, bud. You're all right. Hanging out in here.
Did you guys do Sweet Jesus?
No, we didn't. Yeah, it was great. We did like 2 sets of music, and yeah, just like really digging in and trying to like honor the music without being a parody of it, you know? Like,
right.
And I thought we did a great job. It was really fun. So
I'll have to look. Are the recordings of that up anywhere?
Yeah, this should be on archive somewhere.
Do you do any non-jam band stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I had a side project where I still do. I mean, we haven't done anything in a while, but it's Neil and myself from Dobopod and our friend Ben. We have a side project called Mom and Dad. It's a trio, and that's like sort of like Ween meets Black Sabbath, kind of weird, heavy rock and roll.
Power trio, nice.
Yeah, that's really fun. We haven't done anything in a while. Again, COVID. The guitar player moved to Idaho, so it's
right.
difficult to work on stuff.
Right. So next year, what do you have coming up? Let's get you got a spring tour? You doing a whole tour, or what's going on?
Yeah, we got a spring tour that starts in Colorado. We do a couple dates in the Front Range, then we sort of do a loop around. And in Steamboat, we're doing 2 nights there for the Winter Wondergrass after parties at the Old Town Pub. And from there, we make our way west, do some stuff in Idaho and Montana, go up to the Pacific Northwest.
Because your guitar player lives in Idaho now.
Oh, yeah, that one does. Actually, that's a good point. I should see if he's around. And then we're ending that tour in Los Angeles on some date in March, like the 18th or something.
Awesome. Yeah, so really so great to be able to talk to Neil and Chuck, and the fact that we were able to put this into 2 parts, I think, Kevin, was fantastic. So lots to listen to there, and thanks to them. Coming up next week, we got to chat with, I think, 3/5 of Pixie and the Partygrass Boys, and it was a fantastic conversation. They were just so authentic and funny. I just found myself thinking I could talk to them for hours. So that's going to be a great one. Make sure everybody can check that out. I do have some information, like Kevin mentioned. We like to throw some questions out there every once in a while. So have some answers when we had asked both on Twitter and Instagram about people's New Year's Eve plans. And so I'll just run through some of those for you. Let's see. I think part of the reason I like doing this is I just like to say the handles. That's a big part of it for me, Kevin. It's really fun.
I hear you with that.
Yeah. Okay. So I tried to group these because, as you know, there's a little bit of a theme here, especially on Twitter. Let's see. Tim the Farmer on Instagram is going to see Buffalo Commons. They're more of a local band at Old Town Pub in Steamboat Springs out here in Colorado. Amazing venue. That's going to be a great show. I love to see that support. And then we have a slew of geese, right? So Fish Hippie. Yeah, Hogs Jam, gonna go see some Goose. At Captain Incredible, I will be with the premier bird band in a place where people inexplicably eat their chili with spaghetti, but I will not be eating any of that. No, thank you. Okay, so Goose band memes, who I adore, and then Tone EIOU heading to Goose as well. Got some people going to stream Goose from home at Texas Goose Fan. Streaming from snowy Colorado and Ty Lattage too. And then let's see, at Fingergun Pew Pew, that one's really great to say. Go everywhere, stream everything. And our friend Ryan Molnar is going to be doing the same thing. So I think that takes care of some of the Goose mentions, but let's kind of flesh this out a little bit here. Let's see. At Clark was planning on a Leafs game and Russo's Almost Dead. That's here in Denver, but now doing the Leafs game and his first ever string cheese show. I love that. I love making New Year's a time to see a band for your first show with them. That's awesome.
Does that spoil you?
Yes.
You get 3 sets, they fucking go balls to the wall.
Yes.
Next time you're like, oh, 2 sets, that's it? What do you got?
Yeah. As someone who saw Fish for the first time on New Year's Eve, yes. You have to learn to live with that.
I hear you.
Yeah. My friend Dean Muchetti, who's based in Los Angeles, he's a musician, is going to go see the Roots. Seth Man 8 out in Pittsburgh has some pigeons playing ping pong. That's a lot of peas. On the 30th, but staying home on the 31st to stream some shows. March Go is streaming Billy Strings at home with friends. And then my buddy at Nash Sax, who is also a musician, is playing with Hippies and Cowboys at Kid Rock's main stage in Nashville. Sapia Science here, hoping for 2 nights at MSG next year. So he's already looking forward to next year.
There you go.
Yeah, he said he's going to be in the city with his family for other stuff and can't get into MSG. So sorry, buddy. Free Bouncin' Antelope is working, so gave him a a salute for that. Kat Matthews has a potluck karaoke slumber party. And then Kenny Maxax, who is also a musician, is going to be playing saxophone.
Yes, please on the karaoke slumber party.
Right. Well, I said +1. I love some good karaoke, and usually, if I'm singing karaoke, it means that I shouldn't be driving. So the slumber party is kind of necessary.
As kid.
Yeah, you got to go in knowing that that's going to happen.
Right. Exactly.
Whether it's my house or somebody else's, because it's going to take a little bit for me to get to that point. And then Kenny Maxax is playing sax and flute at Carmine's in Hartford, Connecticut. So look, we got a little bit of a variety there going on. All good stuff.
Yes, and I will be sitting home and watching the stream on WOOC Plus afterwards. 15 minutes after the show, we're doing the Return of the Afterfish after show. So,
oh, cool.
Me and Tim are going to do me and Tim are thinking we're trying to do a short 10-minute thing, especially on New Year's Eve, because it'll be 2 a.m. at that point here on the East Coast.
Yeah, you might need to bring in some people who are not on the East Coast.
Right, exactly. We'll have to talk about that. So that's fantastic. So next week we got Pixies, man. We got some great answers to that question. I'm gonna love seeing all the war stories coming on the other side of New Year's from people, because there's always some great stories. You got anything else for us this week, or?
I would just say look for us on social media. I'm also looking to get stories of people who have been miracled or who have done the miracling, if that's a word. I'm going to make it a verb, because we're going to talk next time about a really great story that's been posted about somebody who got miracled into Fish New Year's 2015. And then it's just kind of catching on. So it made me think about other people who have been in the same situation.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Well, with that, I'll leave you with stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. And I'll see you next week, Amanda.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.